Hola humanos, welcome to our ipsicafé scoping series. We are very excited to be here today. This series is a time where we take an idea and we scope it in real time. And we do so 1 hour, we're gonna do that 1 hour at a time. My name is Alejandra, I'm a strategist and a community organizer. And we also have
Lizzie, I'm a project strategist and a system thinker.
So the first idea we are scoping under this series is a way to blueprint our it's a way to blueprint and interweave the networks that we have so we can strengthen our communities and more effectively translate that people power into structural change making power. Since this is our first video, we're going to start with a general brainstorm. And you can see on the screen, hopefully, maybe not. You can see the bubble tool, which is what we will be using to do that brainstorm. In the following weeks, we will continue to work on what it is that we're going to build on here. So we always start by writing the purpose of what we're working on in the top of our bubble tool, and then also noting the time. It really helps us keep track of the details and how long things take along the way. While I do that, I think Lizzie has a couple of things that she would like to say.
And this is a methodology that we use for anything that we want to plan, or an idea that we want to develop further. It could be a personal project, it could be a project in your work. And the bubble will allow us to have that brainstorming. It's a free flow, no constraints. It's just anything that comes to our brain, we start putting it there. We hope you like the methodology. Thank you.
Cool. So let's, I'm gonna go ahead and change it over here. I had written it a little earlier.
We hope you like the methodology. Thank you.
Don't know what that was, but we're just going to carry on through. And we have, all right, so it is not 20, say 20:05. Netherlands time anyway. All right, so here we go. We have it on the top corner. Try to blueprint ways. The reason behind this idea is I feel like there's been a lot of frustration that I've noticed both in myself and other people around me. And I feel like we all have small sets of community, and some large as well in some places, but we don't necessarily have those connections that allow us to interweave them into stronger networks. So Lizzie, do you have any thoughts? I'm going to start putting some bubbles in here. Anything specific that you were thinking about in relation to this?
So as Alice said, we normally many of us have a good database with a lot of names, a lot of titles or roles, or where the people work at. But how we weave that is something that Alejandra has brought, like, how do we really give power to the network as a collaborative group of people with the same goal? So we are putting this process and project just to see how the blueprint comes out. And we are very confident that it's going to have a very good map to be stronger together with any of the networks that we have or we build.
Yeah, one thing that sorry, I'm managing a million things while I try to figure out this streaming business. So I apologize if sometimes I lose track of my thoughts. But But yeah, I was taking notes of some of the things that you were saying when you were talking with me. Well, all right. What else? I think one of the things I was thinking about, what we build community around. Um, so that's the kind of the train of thought with the bubbles that I'm putting on right now. And Lizzie, you can feel free to either add them directly if you're working on the browser as well, or just let me know and I'll add them as we go. So yeah, thinking about how we group together already, I think is a good first step. Thinking about interest, thinking about the sector, the industry in which we work. Thinking about religion, could be culture, could be geography as well. Identity.
Virtual space or physical space, time availability.
I do a little zoom so we can work a little closer. Availability, formats of interaction. You said time availability. Did you say other types of availability?
I meant both because one is like the places. The format is okay. It could be virtual, in person. That's the format, and then within those we can put different bubbles too. Because in the virtual format, what is that particular? Because people, there are free tools, or maybe we could have networking with people that do not have availability of computers.
Yeah, so I think accessibility
Accessibility, correct.
It's like a big component.
Right.
What else?
And then in the in-person, it is just location, probably. I don't know if that geography could be there, could be used for both.
Yeah, I think we can just like edit it, geography and location.
Yes. In the matter of, that would be the places, the format, the time availability, for example, with the global world that we are, global world, like that's a redundancy, with the global type of connections that we have today. You are 9 hours ahead of me, but then we could have a lot of, there could be groups that you are interested here in the United States or in any other country, and we need that time availability, which sometimes is hard when we are working in the global environment.
Yeah, so I'm putting just like different things that came to mind, both the interconnection, time zones, and just coordinating, just in general. That's like something to keep in mind as we're trying to interweave networks, is how we're coordinating amongst existing networks.
An item that I think is really important also when networking is what is a safe space, and more like not in the location but in the context of that you feel safe, that you feel that you are in a group that will recognize your inputs, or that will not, that you are not going to be there in detriment of your own safety, right?
Right.
And this could be people that are shy. They probably don't like to be like in big groups. And that understanding probably is like the understanding of the diversity. How people can feel better in different groups, depending on how the groups, what is the word I'm looking for? The dynamic of the group. Depending on the dynamic, people could feel safe or not. Group dynamics. You put collaboration, right? Yeah. Yeah, because in the group dynamics, we can really feel sometimes like, and it has happened to me, like you find people that really have the same interest that I have of collaborating when others see you as a competitor. And as a competitor is you are like an enemy because then you are competing against me, or so that's important to understand. That's what I have behind the group dynamics too.
Okay.
And
Did you
maybe
want
put
me to add
competitors. Yeah,
anything?
let's have competitors because that's something that, I think it could be interesting to evaluate how we can network with competitors without.
What do you mean by competitors?
Competitors is like if you're doing, if it's a networking for it could be either for work or for any event that you. I'm a runner, so I'm going to bring the running. So if you are in a networking and then you feel that you are competing or that the people are competing with you, then maybe you don't feel like very comfortable. But maybe with emotional intelligence or with skills or tools that we can learn, we can lower that level of competitiveness because we are not in the networking process to compete, but to collaborate, right? To be stronger together. We are always going to find people that complement, but we are always going to find people that have the same skills that we do. And sometimes people could think, well, I do that. I don't need any other person to do that in a network. And you know what I mean? Is it clear?
Yeah, I think so. But it wasn't so much, so I feel like I switched it from competitors to competitiveness. So it's more about
Competitive.
addressing
Yeah.
that competitiveness, but because
Yes.
I didn't feel like we were really thinking of this as I'm not really competing with anyone. There's plenty to go around. So I feel
Right.
like
But it is that competitiveness that you can find in groups, in
Mhm.
close groups, right? So the
And I
thank you.
added emotional intelligence, which is part of like how, you know, you were discussing dealing with that, right?
Yeah. Another thing is like would be knowledge transfer or learning transfer, when we
Yeah.
learn from others. Like we can certainly, I have these abilities and I have these weaknesses or these needs, and who can benefit from what I know and who can provide me with tools that I need to know more about something, right?
Hmm.
Which is we in that knowledge transfer and sharing, it requires humility, that we are humble and we come with a open mind of bringing the best. The purpose is that way
What
to
do you mean by the
build.
best?
Excuse me.
What do you mean by the best? Just
I
curious.
don't, what did I say? I don't.
Oh, that
I don't.
we could bring the best. I wasn't sure. Sorry, I was
We
just
can.
asking more, but I think I interrupted your
You
thought
said bring
process.
the best or bring. I don't understand the word.
Best, like
Oh,
better,
you say best.
best.
Yes, yes. To
No, I
bring the
didn't
best
say
of.
best. You said that.
Right, right, right. No, but when you repeat it, I didn't hear best.
Ah, gotcha.
So, so that was so that we bring the best of us, right? I- So that we bring the best to give and we bring the best to receive, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Um, so humility, which you mentioned, and it made me think of value alignment in general. I feel like that
Value
would.
alignment, critical, really critical, because there are some values which are your, those non-negotiables. And maybe you can put value alignment and we can have one bubble that is non-negotiables, because sometimes, you know, there's so much we can do, but there are some lines that we are not able to cross, which is critical. And sometimes because we are taught or we grow to be polite, we, tend to say yes when we don't want to say yes, and we sacrifice our own purpose there, and that's what the safe space is. So that that non-negotiable has a lot to do with the safe space, because when you accept non-negotiables for the sake of a group, then you may not be safe.
I mean, definitely. I think there has to be some sort of trust that is built, and your word has to mean something, I
Right.
think, within that. So,
Yeah.
for sure, I agree.
So you can add that trust there too.
Okay.
And again, I don't know if the recording is, as we are speaking, all the bubbles that we have discussed, all these items are being in the tool where they are being put, Canva. They are
Hmm.
not necessarily in YouTube, in the channel. So
I
either
can I
there's
can see them.
you can see them. Okay. Again,
Hmm.
it was me. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I am 9 hours behind you, so that's probably what it is. The time zone is catching on me.
Maybe. The only thing that I'm not sure is that the volume is coming through. Um, but if we were to like pause or something, I could.
Yeah.
But
Well,
if
we'll know afterwards, and again, if not,
if
we
it's
can.
silent, we can just record over it, and add the audio track because we
Okay.
still have the capture.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, okay. So we continue.
We continue. Um,
What else do we have? I'm
well,
thinking,
we would need tools. When I say tools, is a tool to manage I'm going to start thinking now on the technical aspects. Tools to manage this, a database, an Excel file, a Google Sheets, whatever tool
well,
it is where we capture the information of our network and how we are going to cross-reference.
I think that should um, definitely be considered, but also with like keeping in mind that this might be a particular vulnerability for certain groups, like the idea of creating very centralized pockets of information is something that can be, let's say, used against a group. So while there needs to be some sort of documentation of these connections in order to be able to do them intentionally, I do think that needs to be approached with nuance and care for each particular group as the like people are applying. That's why I like the idea of creating a blueprint. This isn't like this is the way you do this. It's like this is something you need to consider, which I feel like would
Okay.
be what came into at this point. Be like, okay, how are you going to centralize, like create some sort of database? And it might be like, no, we can't, or we do it this way, or we do it that way. We anonymize it this way, that kind of thing.
Maybe if we want to call it different, because database implies something in a computer system or in a cloud, maybe we can call it like network information data. And in this sense, or we can keep, I don't know, I don't know what the right word would be, but it is important to know that it has to be written somewhere, and it could be in a notebook, right? It could be in pencil and paper,
Mm-hmm.
or in a table that people are filling up, and it is whatever, like you said, if there are vulnerable groups that really do not want to, and I understand, because there are so much hacks and so much issues with the clouds and internet today and in the past decade that it's getting worse. So I think that still has to be recorded, because it's your platform, right? Even if it's in a notebook, but it is who, where they are, when they are available, what are their um, their styles. Another thing there, Ale, and now that I say styles, is communication styles. Very important too. how people like to communicate. Sometimes you have networks that, it is, you have to establish how the network is going to communicate, and also the frequency of that communication is just monthly or quarterly or weekly.
Sorry, I decided to eat a candy because I was really thirsty. And now I feel like my candy snacking is in the background.
I don't hear it.
I'm trying really hard.
So I thought of something while you were talking about your candy. It's also, when you mentioned there, when we having the purpose so that we build and interweave our networks so we can effectively translate people power into structural power. Maybe one important thing, and one of the important things of the purpose is not like, oh, this is where we go, but all the time we are reading that to ensure that, oh, that what do we want and what else do we need? How do we build a blueprint?
Yeah,
So
that's like Lizzie said, this is one of the reasons why we keep this at the top left corner, because this process can be kind of tedious. And as you're trying to think of different things, you go on different tangents, and having that purpose at the top corner really helps anchor us and bring us back. So once we kind of feel like we've explored a tangent enough, then we come back and we look at a different word within that sentence. It's like, okay, what do you mean by building? What do we mean by interweaving? How do we do that building? So here's where we're going into the tools, the channels of communication, how often that's happening. So that's what we're doing every time that we, kind of like explore a different thing. And one thing that I usually have on screen also is the 5 W's and H. So like the question words, because having the visual what, where, when, why, how really helps kind of continue stimulating questions in our minds as we think and cross-reference them with every word within the purpose sentence. So thank you for bringing that up.
yeah, and speaking of that, so if we say like effectively, what effective is, this is something that we will have to develop a little bit further, but the translate it means a lot of things, right? But the first thing that we think is translation of languages. So I think that we should put their languages.
You.
Huh?
It was just funny because you said the first thing we can think of many things. The first thing we think is this. But no, it's the first thing you thought. Languages.
Well, I think because we are a company, then I think this is something that happened all my career. All my career, I always have spoken in the we, in the first person of plural, and even in many meetings, director, I am presenting to a director, to a whole bring, and then I say we, and they always says who's we, and it was just me. But which I'm gonna pat me in the back because I think it's a good thing because I'm not like I. But anyway, we translate people. Let's put languages because that's the first thing that comes with translation. That is not what we mean there, or that we mean with the purpose, right? It's not translate in languages, but it reminded me that because of the global communications, not only we don't need to be out of our own location or locality or geography. We are going to have people with different languages or with different, needs. So if it's important when we have that in mind. So the people power, it comes a lot of things that we have mentioned there, the knowledge, the understanding of diversity, the coordination, the interconnections. A lot of that is the people power. Now, what is the structural power? And maybe we can find what needs are there. So if we do now, what is there that we as a group can do for a better world, if that's the interest, right? Or when we have a project, let's say, we are talking about positive social impact initiatives, what are the needs that our network can provide power to those needs, right?
What do you mean by
Sometimes,
that?
sometimes we think, oh, I have this and I'm going to give you that, but maybe that's not what you need. So if we understand the other side, because if we are building our network to have structural power in whatever it is, we need to understand what the needs are, right? So that the structural power that we build, it is needed by someone, right? Because sometimes
Well, I
we,
think this, go ahead, sorry. I'll go
yeah,
ahead.
sometimes it is like we want to force this is the solution, and instead of we always say we need to be enamored of the problem, not of the solution, because oh, I want this solution, but do we really need that solution? Let's see what the problem is, and then we adapt the solution to that problem. So this is the same case. We have a lot of knowledge, we have a lot of teams with a lot of ideas and desire to support something, to convert it in structural power, but for whom? What are the needs of that whom, right? If
Yeah,
you know,
I put both identification of needs and problem identification as different bubbles that can kind of address that. I do think as we're talking about blueprinting, like weaving our networks, I feel like I mean, maybe not for some people, but I feel like this starts in a very intimate way. It starts with your already existing communities in the spaces that you already occupy with the shared kind of realities that you have with that there is a set of shared realities that you or a shared reality that you have with this group, be it like we mentioned earlier, be it through the interests that you have, the culture, your geographic location, whatever it may be. So I don't see it so much as like trying to solve something else, but more as a way of, okay, so within these groups that we're existing and participating in, what is it that we align
yeah,
around? And what is it that we can see in this the people support that we have that is highly wanted, but it doesn't really translate to that reality in terms of institutional power, in terms of making decisions at the government level, in terms of distributing resources. So in that sense, I feel like it needs to be grassroots and it needs to be um, I completely agree that it can't be just like, oh, I think this group of people over there need this from me. I think that is not the way to, because no one's saving anyone.
right.
No one is saving anyone. We're all just doing what we can in our spaces and figuring out how we can combine all of these efforts to create better environments for everyone, essentially. We all could be doing better. So I fully agree. I think it has to be something that one is connected with and invested in, whether it's in with time, labor, resources, whatever it may be. You have to be invested, um, not just performatively, but literally. You have to be invested in how you lend your time to these efforts, or how you lend your resources to these efforts, or how you lend your labor to these efforts. Um, because otherwise, you're not demonstrating buy-in, right? Um,
Hmm.
into whatever the scenario might be. So maybe that's part of
Yeah.
it. I want a better word for buy-in because it's very capitalist, but I'm gonna put it in there for now until I find a
So
better option.
with your wording, and one of the things that we want to mention here, and I say we because I know that this is a we thing, is that it doesn't matter if we say one of the things that come out of our brain is similar to other bubble. that will filter out by themselves later. So it doesn't matter maybe if it's something that you think is similar to what we have there, but it could be with different words, we put them there. At this moment, as I mentioned, this is free flow, anything that comes. So I would like, you mentioned shared reality. I would like that bubble there because that could generate like more ideas there. And also, I would like shared understanding because sometimes, we are not in sync. I know we have to be in sync of what we are doing and why we are doing it. So I would, communication is really, really hard. As George Bernard Shaw said, the writer, the illusion of communication is that it ever happens. We think that we communicate, but we don't. And now with so many networks and so many tools to communicate and misinformation, the communication is getting worse. So it's really, really important that there's a shared understanding of what we are trying to do, and as a network or as a system or as a people power. So resources, yes, that's a good one because we count with I'm not gonna say endless, but we definitely have resources. Um, and I would like to mention something here from a person that I admire a lot, Alison. I going to say she always have said that if there are not space for you, you create it. So I think it's like if the space doesn't exist, create the space. So maybe we can put that, create the space, because sometimes we think we want to jump into a network that already exists, or maybe somebody could have a lot of ideas to do something and they don't have, and then you start creating that. You start creating that effort for being a leader, right?
I mean, I think in a lot of ways that was my process in coming to create ipsicafé. And I'm very intentional with trying to cultivate my communities, both taking space and trying to figure out where I can make space. And I do have existing communities that I really like taking part in. But when it came to strategy and planning and weaving networks like this that we're focusing on right now, I don't feel like I have a space for that. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that I don't particularly have access to it. So it made me think that it was something we could create, which is why Ipsy Cafe was born for us to share this kind of information, not just the results of whatever we plan here with this blueprint idea, but to show how we go about scoping and planning, because it's the primary method we use to carry out all of the projects, personal, professional, of any kind. At least I do in my life. So it's an opportunity to share that and then also connect with other people who are also wanting to plan, wanting to scope, have ideas for uh, projects and initiatives that could have real positive impact, and perhaps just need a bit of support, a bit of community, a bit of guidance. So this is why we wanted to create Itzy Cafe in the first place. So I'm really excited, and I think it's a great example as we're talking about. Sometimes you can take space, and then sometimes when there is no space that fits what you're looking for, then you can just go ahead and make it.
Yeah, and this is something that I personally have experienced. Um, you know, I have seen the transformation when because you become a multiplier effect, and I would like that if you can put that in a bubble as a bubble, the multiplier effect, because you become a model, or your network becomes something. It becomes a structural power, and I'm going to bring the example. Is that okay? Of Alison Mariella this year. She's a runner. She's from New York, and she moved to Washington State. And I don't know how exactly the thing started. If it was during COVID, But I have been running in Washington State for almost 20 years, very active in different communities of running. And what I have seen after, um, Allison stepped foot in this world of running have been so powerful for a lot of running groups that didn't have access to running. And I'm not going to say access to running.
Can you give a little background on what Allison has done, just to for those who don't know who Allison is in
Yeah,
terms of
so
running?
she's an American author. She has a book, Running While Black, and she's an activist and a runner. And she founded Harlem Run back in New York. And then when she came to the States, she to the States, sorry, to Washington State. And this is what I know because this is when I didn't know her as an activist or as a runner or as an author, right? All of a sudden there was the running World International Run Day, and that's just a day where everybody runs, right? But what I have seen throughout the years is how that day became a week that she, with other leaders in the community, in the different communities in Greater Seattle, started to bring groups that didn't have either representation or that they didn't feel like in safe spaces. When you are not, you don't feel
Well,
like
the
the
space is not built for you. I feel like it's very
space is not
easy
built
to.
for you because you are different, because you don't have the running body or the running form or the running speed or or the running type or the
Skin
running
color.
color. Exactly. So all those things where, um, and it struck me because she had put a series of little shorts in PBS, in public broadcast system, of how a lot of spaces, specifically in this case for people of color, they were denied of that for a lot of historical reasons, right? It's not like the doors are closed. It's like the system was closed in the past and the culture continues. And then it's okay, if this space is not for me, if hiking is not for me, I'm going to create the hiking space for me. Or if the swimming is not for me, I'm going to create the swimming space for me, or fly fishing or gardening or whatever it is. So in the running community, she has been a force. She has been a force on changing that and being a multiplier effect where she has brought sponsors and a lot of different communities. For example, in the running week, you have the blind groups, you have deaf groups, you have the Latino groups, you have the LGBTQ groups, like groups that they have to be like isolated, or they have felt the need to be like isolated. But now when you bring this whole running group, everybody is a runner and everybody is accepted, and there's a large community that feeds from it, from the other one. So that's something that I think is very powerful, because then you don't, like you said, you are creating the space, a safe space, and then you transfer your knowledge and you share your knowledge. And that's when you mention resources there, is like what others have done that we can use, right? So that's I don't know if you want to put in resources, or you want to what is the word when you do strategic planning, like scanning other systems, similar systems, like that maybe you don't need to start from zero, but that you can see what is there, what others have done in this particular area that I want to build a community. Or I don't know, there would be a bubble for that. I would think
What do you want to
I
me
would
to write in it?
like a scan. There's a word in when we have done the strategic planning. It's like we scan
Like
this system,
environmental skin?
environmental scan. And maybe it's not environmental in this word, but it's that sense, like that you check what others have done, and not necessarily in your area, right? Because um, it's like there was a race last year, the first women's race in Georgia. Now it is every year, but it was just then you have all these powerful women creating this marathon, and it just brought people from the whole country, all types, all walks of life, to run a marathon. And because that was like the force that a lot of individual running communities in different parts of the country felt that they translate the people power into structural power. So it is, so we could look at what else is being done.
Okay.
And not necessarily in the same area, not necessarily in the same area. It could be in different areas, but the methods could be similar.
Yeah, and I added as you were talking a couple of bubbles, the existing systems, structures, and institutions, as something that, again, when we're looking at structural power, how is that power concentrated right now, right? Because if someone has that power, someone has institutional power, someone has, or a group of people. So how is it distributed? Where is it concentrated? How is it concentrated in that way? Exploring existing systems really helps ideate different possibilities. Because one thing I think a lot of people take for granted is, I don't know if for granted is the right word, but a lot of people seem to not realize that everything that we operate under, all the systems, institutions, and structures that exist right now, were made by humans and can be replaced with other systems, structures, institutions. It seems really difficult because established structures are inherently resistant to change, but it is not impossible. So I always look at adding those bubbles. And then I also added over here on the bottom left, when we were grouping kind of the different ways we might group, I put ability and disability as a bubble as well to consider. So we have about 5 minutes left. Are there any last few bubbles that you want to add for today before we pause the process for now?
No, and we know this is just to mention, this is not like once and done. The brainstorming could continue, and at some point we think, okay, we think we have it all, and we start then with additional steps. But we always can have something that we missed, and this is very important. So this portion is just critical to have all the items that we want to cover or not cover, because it's not only the things that we want to do. It's like we mentioned, the non-negotiables. We are going to put lines on the sand. So for now, I'm good.
All
I
right.
think we went from a lot of issues at the beginning, and then it went more fluid, as usual.
Yeah.
We get confident with ourselves.
I think I'm gonna transition to our faces for just the last few minutes. I don't know if there was, as we're thinking about the tool right before we kind of end the stream, if there was anything that you wanted to add. I, for myself, want to say that, yeah, the first part was a bit of a full of some issues, but I think this was fun. I think it was nice to articulate the process. A lot of times we've gotten so used to doing this process that we kind of just go back and forth silently. So it's nice to have to articulate it. It helps to explain what it is, the logic behind the things that we do.
No, thank you for leading the ipsicafé, Alejandra.
Yeah, Alejandra. I put the end time on the bubbles for 8:55, so 55 after. So we spent around 50 minutes.
Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned, I want to mention in this moment, just in case, The date and time is always because a lot of people say, oh, we don't have time to plan, we don't have time to define what is not, and it doesn't take a longer time. Out of the 50 minutes that we had, I think that 10 went into, or 5 or 10 went into the issues. And it is something that, it comes and you leave your brain talking. Just let your brain flow and just anything that you think, don't think anything is absurd, put it there. We put it there, and then the process will take us to a nice scope and plan. And eventually we will have a interwoven network.
Okay, I think you have the YouTube somewhere playing back there.
Me?
So I can hear it. Yeah, somewhere. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much, Lizzie, for your time today. We're going to continue next week, Tuesday, March 24th, same time, same place. It'll be 8 p.m. for the Netherlands, and I believe noon for US West Coast, which is where Lizzie is, and somewhere in the middle of that for everywhere else in the world. If anyone here is looking for support or guidance with their specific project or idea that they have, we hold office hours every week. You can you can sign up with a link that we are leaving in the description. And we also, under ipsicafé, want to do special events a few times a year. And we're planning one for the second half of the year. So you can follow us on our LinkedIn pages to stay up to date on that. Is there anything you want to add, Lizzie?
No, I'm good. Thank you very much for leading this effort, for leading ipsicafé, and I very much appreciate all you've done.
All
Great
right.
job.
Well, everyone get some rest and hasta la próxima. Ciao.
Ciao, chaito, bye-bye.